Most people planning a trip to Hawaii get stuck on the same question pretty early in the process. Which island should I visit? Oahu or Kauai? Because both islands are genuinely incredible. Both can give you a vacation where you'll make lasting memories. But the thing is, they're not the same trip, not even close. So today I'm going to help you figure out which island actually fits your travel style, your budget, and honestly, what you're hoping to feel once you're there, because that last part really matters more than you think. Aloha and welcome to Hawaii's Best, a podcast helping you plan an unforgettable Hawaii vacation with clear, practical guidance. I'm Bryan Murphy, a certified Hawaii destination expert, and each week I break down what actually matters for your trip using local insight and firsthand experience so you can plan with confidence and travel with aloha. Today, we're breaking down Kauai versus Oahu, the real differences, the costs, the crowds, and some important on-the-ground updates for anyone traveling in 2026. So by the end of this episode, you'll know which island is the right call for your trip. And if you want something to go even more in-depth, go to the first link in the show notes below and grab the free Oahu versus Kauai decision guide. It'll walk you through everything that we cover today and makes it easy to share with whomever you're planning your trip with. So this episode is part of a larger series where I'm doing island comparisons. Done a few already, quite a few actually. So I'll drop those below in the show notes of the other episodes so you can go and maybe you're thinking about Oahu versus Maui. That was a recent one. So I'll be dropping all those below. But before we get into today, Oahu versus Kauai, I think it's important to, there's some travel updates. I think that is important, especially if you're thinking about or planning a trip anytime soon. And as of late March 2026, today is March 23rd at the time of this recording, the state is saying that there's no reason to cancel or postpone your Hawaii travel. The islands are open, but there was an active Kona low weather system. You've probably seen it all over. I've been posting about it. It's tragic, a lot of what is going on. It just feels like Hawaii can't get a break from these storms, and it seems like it's just one thing after another, especially on the island of Oahu. Flooding has impacted parts of the island. The official guidance right now is to avoid the North Shore until further notice. Things are starting to slowly reopen, but like I mentioned, North Shore got hit really hard. But no matter what island you are traveling to, take some time to see what those current conditions are, because there's going to be a lot of recovery effort on all the islands. Maui also got hit pretty good. So for those, I've gotten tons of messages, about, what should we do? Should we cancel? I wouldn't necessarily cancel, but I would definitely go into it if you are planning in the next couple months, just to be aware that there is going to be some recovery. Recovery leads to construction. So there is going to be that impact happening. And that's just the way it is, Hawaii is isolated and the weather can be unpredictable. I mean, this was like kind of once in a lifetime storm, 2 storms back to back that came through. If there's been recent rain, anytime that you visit Hawaii and the water looks brown or murky, you'll just want to wait at least 48, 72 hours before getting in the water. But there's really no reason to panic. Just check conditions before you go. Now, getting on to TSA, there's this partial government shutdown that is still happening. And as it relates to TSA travel, I want to talk through that a little bit. And as of right now, Daniel K. Inouye Airport, the main airport in Honolulu, seems to be doing okay with, quote, normal wait times that ebbs and flows, and especially as we get into spring break and then later into summer. Those will be longer, obviously. But I would just encourage you to monitor the situation, because across the rest of the country, there are some extreme waits that are happening. So you should just know what to expect from your departing airport as well as your current conditions to your destination. So partial shutdown is still happening. There's a lot of talk there. I saw that President Trump tweeted that ICE might even get involved as far as helping out with security during this time. I'm not going to get into any of that, but there are some talks about as far as solutions, whether those solutions are good or worse. I'm not going to get into that. but just know that it is a thing and it is something that you want to definitely watch as you get closer to your travel. Okay, now on to Kauai versus Oahu. Here's, I think, the clearest way I know how to say it is that Oahu gives you the most options, the most range, whereas Kauai gives you the deepest exhale. There's a piece about Kauai, and we're going to get into that a little bit, but that's really it. That's kind of the whole comparison in a sentence or two. And Oahu is kind of a trip where you've got a lot of real options. So from Waikiki and the South Shore, Pearl Harbor, Iolani Palace, a lot of history there. The North Shore, like we mentioned, just be aware of what those current conditions are. You got the surf town up there, Haleiwa. Oahu also has neighborhoods with food scenes that go way beyond resort dining. So it's layered, it moves, there's nightlife, it keeps you engaged. Where on the flip side, Kauai feels different almost from the moment you land. It's slower, it's greener, there's less infrastructure, no high rises, nothing above a coconut tree. There's fewer options in some ways, and that's exactly the lure of Kauai. It's not trying to keep you busy. It's giving you space to actually be somewhere and to unplug and unwind. So before you pick an island, here's, I think, the most useful, helpful question to ask yourself. What do you actually want this trip to feel like? So what do you envision this vacation to be if you're traveling solo, maybe with a partner, or with your family, or with extended family? Are you looking for variety and ease, or are you looking for quiet and scenery? Because those two things will really point you in two very different islands. Quick break from today's episode. Don't worry, this isn't a sponsored ad, and I'm not trying to sell you anything. I just want to say thank you for listening. If this podcast has been helpful for you at all, hitting follow on your podcast app is the best way to support it. It's free, and it helps more people plan better Hawaii trips. Thanks again for listening, and let's get back to today's episode. If you're visiting for the very first time, in my consultations, I usually recommend Oahu, I'd say 80% of the times if you're traveling for the first time, because Oahu does have a lot of those, especially if you're traveling from the continental US, the mainland. It has those amenities or that infrastructure maybe that you're used to, from kind of that city life to the Targets, the Costcos. You know, you got that on Kauai too, but Oahu it's a bit more, it's the gathering place. You know, that's where the bulk of the population who live in Hawaii, that's where they live, is on the island of Oahu. Oahu is the most practical choice for a lot of travelers. And like I mentioned, for first timers, this is definitely an island to highly consider. And I did a whole episode about this on episode 132 about don't visit Oahu for the first time without knowing these things. And I'm going to link that below. But now that one really pairs well with what we're covering today. So if you're flying into Hawaii's main airport, Daniel K. Inouye, widest range of accommodations at more price points than anywhere else in any of the neighboring islands. Rental cars, shuttles, tours, and actual public transit if you want it as well. And if you want to do a peer-to-peer Uber, Lyft, it's a bit more robust on the island of Oahu. So all in all, that infrastructure on Oahu just makes your trip feel a lot smoother in a way that really matters, especially when you're traveling with kids or a group where everyone wants a little something different. And each side of the island there's just so much variety on the island of Oahu. We've done a lot of episodes about Oahu in general. Hotel rates on Oahu, they average around $280 a night. I got that stat back in January of 2026. And that comes with significantly more inventory and more price point options, from budget-friendly spots like in Waikiki and all the way up to full resort luxury like on the North Shore at the Ritz, Turtle Bay. It'll always be Turtle Bay in my heart. But you also got Ko'olina. We love Ko'olina. That's on the west side. But a lot of people say true west side is past Ko'olina and Waianae. So Ko'olina is a great spot. That you got Aulani over there, Marriott's over there. We like staying at the Marriott Beach Club in Ko'olina. Tons of options. Now, with Kauai, because this island has a very specific kind of pull to it, honestly, and Kauai is for the person, maybe this is you, who wants the island itself to be the main event. And what I mean by that, it's not about the resort, it's not about the hotel, not about the nightlife, it's not about the shopping per se, it's about the island. You know, you think about the island of Kauai, some of the things that come to mind are the Napali coast, Waimea Canyon, Poipu Beach, one of the best beaches in the world, honestly. The drive along the North Shore, the smaller towns, the towns on the island of Kauai are just so, everything you think about, it basically it's like you're stepping into a Lilo Stitch movie. You know, it has that small town feel. There's a lot of those throughout the island. So if you want that vibe, Kauai is definitely your pick. It's that feeling that you're not on a schedule. The itinerary is kind of secondary, and that's just the way it is. You really get on island time on the island of Kauai. And it's really an island that you slow down without even trying, because that's just the vibe and the pace and the feel of Kauai. I've talked about that before. Like, each island has its own feel and pace. And once you get on Kauai, you really start to feel that quickly. As I'm talking about it, you know, Kauai, my first time to Kauai, I was like, yeah, it's all right, you know, because my first island was Oahu. And when I went to Kauai the first time, I was like, man, this is like a lot slower. It didn't take, you know, a couple more visits. Like, and as I'm thinking about it now, it's like, man, I really love Kauai. I love all the islands in their own way, and they're all special. But Kauai is just like, when you think of Hawaii, Kauai is an image and is a spot that comes to mind quicker, for me at least, than any of the other islands. When I think of Hawaii in general, I think about Kauai. Basically, if your version of a great Hawaii day is less about checking boxes and it's more about being somewhere quiet, green, and a little hard to reach, Kauai is the island for you, for sure. And if you want to go deeper into what it's like visiting Kauai, on episode 142, I did the ultimate 7-day Kauai itinerary. So it's not that packed, you'll see, but it does give you at least some structure if you have a week on Kauai. It's a great place to start. So I'll link that in the show notes below, obviously. Now, probably the two biggest questions that I get brought up in consultations, at least, are about, you know, cost and crowd, what to expect for each of the islands. So let's talk a little bit about those numbers. In general, Kauai is going to cost you a bit more when compared to Oahu for lodging. Hotel rates on Kauai average around $430 a night. I'm giving you January 2026 numbers throughout all of this. So compared that to Oahu's $280, that's roughly $140 more per night right there. And over 7 nights, that's over $1,000 in lodging alone before you factor in airfare and food or activities. And that gap is real. That is an important thing to consider. Part of what you're deciding when you choose Kauai is that you're okay paying more for a quieter, less crowded experience, basically. In January 2026, Oahu welcomed over 527,000 visitors, where compared to Kauai welcomed over 121,000 visitors. And that average daily visitor count was over 123,000 on Oahu versus just under 30,000 on Kauai. So when Oahu feels busy, there's a reason for that. And when Kauai feels a bit more quieter, that's really not an accident either. The numbers do speak for themselves. So the question is, which one matches what you're actually looking for your trip, or at least for maybe your next trip? Maybe you visited already some of the other islands and you're thinking about your next trip and you're considering one of these two islands. But it comes down to this: choose Oahu if this is your first trip to Hawaii. Choose Oahu if you're traveling with a group that has mixed interests, or if you have some people who want history, some people want beaches, some want great food, or some just want to relax. Oahu handles that better than really any of the other islands, honestly. Choose Oahu if you want strong logistics, more pricing flexibility, and a trip that just doesn't require a ton of advanced planning to pull off well. And also, choose Oahu if you know you want your vacation to feel, quote, easy. It's easier. There's nothing wrong with that for sure, but easy and incredible are not mutually exclusive on Oahu. And to compare that to Kauai, Choose Kauai if you've been to Hawaii before and you're ready for something that feels different. Choose Kauai if scenery is the thing that you're looking after. If a great day looks like a hike to a viewpoint, a boat tour along the Nepali coast, or sitting somewhere that feels completely removed from everyday life, choose Kauai. Also choose Kauai if you just love the outdoors, you're a hiker, you just want to get out there, if you're a photographer or someone who just wants to slow all the way down. And if that's you, episode 78 on Kauai's Hidden Gems was well worth a listen. I'll link that below. Also choose Kauai if you're willing to do a little bit more planning up front, from reservations, road conditions, access logistics, because that prep pays off a lot if you're visiting Waimea Canyon or watching the Nepali cliffs from the water. All right, so final verdict, Kauai or Oahu. Here's as simple as I can give it to you. Choose Oahu for variety, convenience, and flexibility. Choose Kauai for beauty, quiet, and a slower pace. Neither one is the wrong answer. It really just comes down to the kind of trip that you want for this trip. And if you're still not sure, that's exactly what the free decision guide is for. That's the first link in the show notes, the Oahu versus Kauai decision guide. And I'll walk you through the key differences a bit more in depth in a format that you can just sit with and share with your travel partner and actually use when you're booking your trip. And if you want to talk through all the details, and if you have something that you just question or questions that you just want to ask and bounce off, I do offer one-on-one travel consultations. And that link is also down below. And we'll walk you through which island, which neighborhoods, and which kind of itinerary actually fits what you're looking for your trip to Hawaii. All right. And until next time, as always, live with aloha. Mahalo for listening to Hawaii's Best. If you found today's episode helpful, make sure to hit follow on your podcast app so you don't miss future episodes. You can find all links and resources mentioned today in the show notes below. Hawaii's Best is produced by Shorebreak Media Group, edited by Easy Podcast Solutions, and with music by our friends Stick Figure.